Before we start this video, I wanted to make sure you understand that you can really mess your car up if you don't know what you're doing with this stuff. I have a background in electronics and computing, and I did quite a lot of research before I attempted this. So please, if you don't have a good understanding of this, don't attempt it. Get someone to help you, someone to do it for you, someone who knows what they're doing. I've been thinning the wiring loom. It's worth talking about why you would want to thin the loom. Now, most people say, well, you thin the loom because it saves weight, and I'm sure it does save some, but I'm not sure it saves a great deal. For me, the more important thing is just simplifying the whole system. The fewer the wires, the less I've got to worry about. So I'd like to try and thin it down as much as possible to keep the whole thing as simple as possible. So there was two big bundles of wires on the center console, and I've actually reduced it down to just, what is there, 6-7 wires there. Most of it is to do with the airbag unit, which was installed in this area here, and it was just a bundle of twisted pairs from all the various airbag devices and the things like the occupancy sensors and seat buckle sensors and all those things. So I'll cut in a piece of video here just showing you what it was like before I started. Now, the other thing is that I haven't quite decided what to do about the rear door latches. They're still wired up as being electric, central locking. I've been told that that's not legal based on the current regs for the class, but I've checked the regs and there's nothing in the regs about it. One thing I did find was that the car was set up so that when you started to drive it, it would lock all the doors, and I've disabled that. I disabled that some time ago. I don't know that there's any point me having central locking, because on the odd occasions that I'm going to take it out onto the public road, I'll probably be with it all the time, and even if I wanted to lock it, I could lock it manually. So probably not much point. So I think I'm going to be stripping that out as well. On this side, the big thing I've got here obviously is the main, or one of the main power feeds. This is the one that feeds the fuse box. There's one underneath the car that goes directly onto the solenoid and actually connects to the generator, I think. So that comes through the bottom of the car under the floor, and it comes up just here. And then there's this cross piece that goes across to the starter motor and solenoid on this side. Now, what I've been told is that what you do, because I'm going to relocate my battery into the back passenger area on the left-hand side of the car, what I've got to do is I've got to disconnect this and pull it through the bulkhead, then make a junction box on the other side of the bulkhead, and connect in the cable that I just showed you from inside that powers the fuse box, and also then another cable that goes back to the battery. So that's the plan. I've been looking at 150 amp junction boxes, which is probably the route I'm going to go. Use a 150 amp junction box, because the starter will draw 150 amps if it's cranking continuously. It draws about 400, I believe, at the instant of starting, but that's not continuous, and I don't think that's going to cause a problem. Now, most of the wires I've been able to pull from the center console area through the route over the back of the dash, and then down in this corner down here. And what I did was I squirted some silicon grease, or some silicon WD-40, this stuff. I squirted some of that onto the wires so that they would slide through more easily. And once you get a few through, they actually come out quite easily. The bit that's sort of concerning me is I've got to get this to the other side of the dash, and it's got to go right through this sort of tortuous route. And I'm trying to do this without taking the dash out, and that is a bit worrying, quite honestly. But we'll see how we go. I'm going to give it a go and see if I can drag it through. I may cut this actually, because I don't need all of this through there. So there's no point me dragging the whole length through. I can probably cut it a bit. In fact, I'll probably cut it quite a lot, considering it's got to go into a junction box the other side. Yeah, so that's it. What I've been doing, each time I remove a wire, I do a quick test to see that the car still works. So, and it is still working, so that's good. The other thing I would advise is I've got a sort of way that I check the wires, which is something I recorded earlier, so I'll cut that in here into this video as well. This is how I'm checking that I've got the correct circuit. So you see I've got the multimeter across this pair of grey wires. One's grey and white, one's grey and green. And then at the other end up here, I've found the same pair. I've stripped off the ends of them and shorted it. So now if I switch on my multimeter, you can see I've got 0 ohms, and if I stick it on continuity, it whistles. And then if I cut through the grey and grey cable over here, so if I just snip this, okay, so that's just a double check that I've got the right cable. Often I can't prune the wiring right back to the source, so if you take this K-can bus here, what I do is I bend back one of the pairs, because I don't want a short on the CAN bus, so and then I slip a heat shrink tubing, but this is glue lined heat shrink tubing. So as you heat it up, it sort of glues itself as well. And then I just heat that up and seal it off. Okay, that's it, sealed off. So you can see I've had to do that with a few of them. With these ones, single cables or single wires, I loop them and then put the heat shrink over and then heat it up and glue it in place. So why am I not telling you exactly which wires to cut? I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't want you to do that, because you know, the colour coding on them may be different, and I don't want the responsibility of screwing up your car. So you've got to be confident you know what you're doing here. If you're not confident, I can thoroughly recommend Rob and Mark at 4040, particularly Mark, because he's done a number of these and he knows exactly what he's doing. So that's probably the route to go if you're not confident. Anyway, I'll post another video at another time giving an update on the progress with this.